Hey, so we're here with Coach Burke. Coach, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. How are you?
Can't complain, can't complain. So you're in Belgium. Someone approaches you to help out with a team with younger kids, if I remember correctly. Was that when you realized that coaching was something you wanted to do like for the rest of your life? What was that moment? Was
For,
it then or another moment?
I would say it would probably be earlier in my career. I was actually really fortunate. I knew that I wanted to be involved with youth. That's something that's always been a passion to me. And so just not knowing career paths, I actually kind of wanted to be a social worker because I was like, okay, you have a chance to truly come in and step in and help kids and change their life for the better. And so it probably wasn't until I had the fortune of going to Boston University and having an absolutely incredible coaching staff that helped me become a much better player than I could have ever thought or dreamed of, and a much better just person. I grew a ton, obviously as a basketball player, but also as an individual. And that was probably the first real time where I was like, well, wait a minute, you can be an incredible influence. You can help young women be able to find this new frontier. And I get to do a hoops, like that was the first time it really kind of solidified for me. And then, like you said, being able to go overseas and kind of finally get that hands-on training. We would do team camps when I was in college, but it just wasn't quite hitting the same. And now, like I said, being able to have that on-court in-person experience, it was like, oh, this is amazing, to be able to make this a career. Like, it was a no-brainer for me for sure.
Awesome, awesome. So you're a native of Kansas City, Missouri, correct?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So if you were to use one word to describe a player from Missouri, what would it be and why?
Blue collar.
Blue collar.
Blue collar. I definitely would. I mean, it's like I said, being from the middle of the map, as we like to say, a lot of times, basketball, it's not even just something that you do. It can be almost be familial. My brother, my uncle, my dad, my mom, everyone played basketball. And so when you come from that type of background, you learn to work. You learn to get after it, because mom and dad played. So if I come home and I didn't go hard, I got two people looking me in my face telling me you didn't play hard today, so I think for me, if you have the fortune of recruiting a kid, from honestly just the Midwest in general, a lot of times you're going to get a great blue collar kid.
Mm-hmm. Awesome, awesome. So if you were to use one word to describe your coaching style, what would it be and why?
I would probably say passionate. I absolutely love what I do. Even in the worst days, I couldn't imagine doing anything different. And I am so, having that type of fortune and having just a grateful, mindset, I think allows me to come in every single day and empty the cup. That's a big thing we share as a staff. A big thing we share with our players is every time you walk off the court, don't be saving a little bit for you, because you don't necessarily get to carry that into the next opportunity if there's even a next opportunity. Yeah. And so if this is every opportunity is a one of one, go ahead and empty that cup. So that for me, I would definitely say passionate.
Yeah, yeah. So you were saying I played for Boston U.
Yes.
Conference Player of the Year, if I remember correctly.
Yes, many moons ago.
Tell me about that time. I want to know why Boston U. I want to know how it happened. And what did you learn from those days as a player? Because like I say to people all the time, and you learn what to do and what not to do, through situations you've been in your life. So, when you were a player, what things gravitated towards you and what things looking back, you said, if I become a coach, I'm not going to do that. And it's not to knock that staff.
No, not at all. I mean, with anything, there's evolution, so I know for me, a big reason that I chose that school and that coaching staff was, I needed a staff that was going to push me. I thought I had a chance to be pretty good. I felt like I had a chance to be a part of something special, but I knew that I didn't necessarily, I was a very young freshman. I came in at 17. I didn't necessarily have that toughness to be able to do it. I know I had the internal fire, but to be actually, do it, I wasn't sure if I had that. And that was something that I loved with my staff at BU was I was like, oh no, I know they're going to get everything they can out of me. What that looks like, I wasn't sure, but at least I knew at the end of those 4 years, I was going to be able to look back and be like, we maximize this. Mm-hmm. And that was something for me. Like I said, I definitely have carried into my career now as far as, you only get these kids for a very short, period of time. And, it's, I always kind of think back to what my sisters say, they have kids and, the days are long, but the years are short,
Mhm.
and in our profession, it's true. You look up sometimes, you're like, that kid's a senior now. Like, how do we get here? So-and-so's graduating. It's like, how did we get here? And so for me, it's like, making sure that, when they leave here, they're not only just a better version of themselves, they're the best version of themselves.
Mhm.
Because now, when we say, they step away and they get into the real world and they've got to kind of find that internal fire on their own, we've put in the values, we've instilled that, that work ethic, we instilled that discipline. So now they just got to keep this thing rolling, So that for me, like I said, was something I knew with my staff at BU. I knew they were going to help me with that. And I'm so grateful that they did.
Mhm. Who is Lester Burke?
What'd you
And
say?
who is Lester Burke? And what connection
Oh,
do you have
Lester
to the,
Burks. So
to the Harlem Globetrotters? Tell
that
me.
is my grandfather on my mother's side. And he is actually one of the original Globetrotters when they were the Harlem Magicians. So that's where I talk about Midwest. Like, it's very rare you have a Midwest family where just one person did basketball. Everybody usually did a little bit of something. And I definitely had the fortune of coming from a really, really incredible a basketball background, on my mom's side. So yeah, I actually have one of the original pictures of him. They did, an article or something, and it's like him stretching out for a layup. And I'm like, I would have killed to gotten that type of length. Like, it definitely skipped the generation, it feels like, with me. But yeah, definitely really, really fortunate to come from a truly basketball family.
Awesome, awesome. So you're a part of the BDS agency and family.
Yes.
So most people don't know that coaches, assistant coaches, head coaches, they have agents.
Yes.
Tell me about your experience with that. Why you decided to get an agent. Why was that the right fit? And how that has helped you throughout your career.
Absolutely. I mean, it honestly was one of the best decisions I've ever made. And I actually was fortunate enough to get on with Brian with the BDS agency pretty early on in my career. And, I laugh and I have to give, a ton of credit to Coach Mazzella over at Seton Hall. I think I'd interviewed for him like 2 times and, didn't get the job both times. And the second time I was just shattered because I was like, oh my goodness, what am I doing wrong here? And so he actually reached out on my behalf to Brian and was like, hey, really young assistant coach that, young and figuring it out, but I think she has a chance to be good for our business, and so you want to talk about, I shouldn't even say terrible, no resume. I think I was on, my second job overall, just no resume to speak of. And, I remember looking up Brian and his agency, and he's got all these incredible clients. And I'm like, why is this man even going to take my call right now? And so him and I spoke on the phone, and great conversation. Brian is, one of the best people, in our business in general, but, also phenomenal in what he does as far as representation for coaches. And so, he was very honest with me. He was like, normally, coach, I wouldn't take on someone with your resume, but Coach Mazzella speaks incredibly highly of you. So if you're interested, I'd love to take you on as a client. And I don't think he finished his statement before I even answered. I was like, yes, absolutely. And I know for me, it was more so being able to have, through these years, have Brian in my corner and being a part of the BDS agency. I think it allows me just to focus on being a great coach, just to be completely honest. I'm not more so concerned on, am I networking? Am I meeting the right people? Am I, for lack of better words, am I politicking, well enough? I just got to focus on getting better at my craft. Because I knew at the end of the day, if there was an opportunity for me, I had someone that was going to be in my corner to ultimately be, get the ear and be in rooms that I just wasn't probably going to be able to. And so not having to worry about that as far as, okay, I got to get this person's ear, or I have to get in front of this person, and to truly just focus on become a better assistant coach, become a better mentor, become, a better person that's a part of women's basketball. Like I said, I think it allowed me to become a better coach, knowing that, if I did want to make a move or I did want to transition somewhere else, I did have an incredible advocate in Brian to be able to give me access to that opportunity.
Yep, yep. We all need a good plug. All need a good
You
plug.
do, you do.
So your first coaching job was Penn Valley, JUCO.
Yes.
Um, Interesting, awesome experience, the JUCO level.
Yes.
Give me some insight in regards to that time. And because you're there, and you're helping mold players to go to the next level, whether it be D3, D2, or D1. And it's a grind,
Yes, it is.
the journey.
I
And
did a
all
lot of laundry in those days.
yeah, it's humbling, and it's tough on the kids and it's tough on the coaches because every kid has a different path. They've been
Yes.
through a lot. Some kids are on a JUCO level because they want to be. They just weren't happy with
Yes.
their offers. It's not an academic thing. Some kids it's a athletic thing or whatever the case may be, or or an academic thing. So
Or
I guess
absolutely, yeah.
so. You tell me about your stint there and what you learned during that time.
I absolutely loved it. I don't think JUCO gets enough. I think two levels that just really don't get enough respect are the high school level and the JUCO level. Because high school just grassroots. Like, I've had the fortune when I was in high school, I had two incredible high school coaches that really, trained me, to learn basketball. I had to learn the game. There wasn't just coming into practice and we were rolling out the balls. Like we had to come in, we watched film, we had to go to games and watch opponents. We went to college games, and that really, like I said, gave me such a huge advantage going into the next level because I already had that trained in me. I was like, yeah, we do film, then we got to do this, so high school level and then just the junior college level, because you are so correct that, when you have the fortune of coaching a junior college team, it's a mixed bag. You've got kids that are there for academics. You have kids that are there because I do need development. Sometimes you have kids there because they need to grow up, so you're dealing with a very mixed bag of kids. And, it's not like maybe the D3, D2, D1 level where you truly kind of get to handpick. No, I want this kid. I'm going to get this kid. I'm going to get this kid, you are truly getting a mixed bag of, personalities, expectations, levels, opportunities. And so for me, it was really great because I was still fairly young at that point. I mean, I was coming off of still playing overseas. And so it was great for me because I had the fortune of being young enough to be able to relate and understand some of the struggles of just, this is hard, I think sometimes people forget like freshmen JUCO or, JUCO freshmen are freshmen, they are 18 years old. Like life is coming at them 100 miles an hour. And so, having the fortune of, I graduated recently and played overseas. I still had that burned in my memory though, of that freshman year of like, okay, life's coming at this kid 100 miles an hour, and my job is to help her navigate it, not to make her feel bad, not to make her feel like she's an anomaly. Like my job is to help her navigate it. But I also loved it on the flip side of, once again, just recently leaving that environment of being like, this is what you're not going to be able to do. This is what coaches are not going to stand for. So you got to get your mind right. You got to go to classes. Like at the next level, they're not trying to walk to your classes with you. They're kind of expecting, it becomes a job now. And we're training you to be able to go into that job and be successful, and I think it was easier for me to relate to the players because I had just come out of, playing for 4 years, and now I was playing professionally, and it literally was my job. Mm-hmm. And so I think for me, just being able to have that opportunity of like, kind of really get into the nitty gritty of things, you don't, like you said, you don't a lot of times have the resources, you don't have the amenities that, other levels can provide you. So you really got to love kids and love basketball to do this. And that for me, like I said, it was great because like you said, it was humbling where I was like, I did do a lot of, a whole lot of laundry. I know what it's like to literally cut up film. Like I've been there, I understand that. So, but I loved it because now, I've had the fortune of having some really incredible stops along my career. I'm grateful for every single one because I'm like, you know what, Jesyka, 2 years ago, we didn't have this, like I remember the non-synergy day. So like, that's why I don't complain. Cause I'm like, well, just tell me how to do it. Cause I remember years ago where this wasn't even an option, so that for me, like I said, I love that level because like I said, it truly is, it's the nitty gritty. You got to love, you got to love kids and helping them grow. And you've got to love basketball because a lot of days that's all you're going to have. And so I really enjoyed that experience.
Mm-hmm. So your first big D1 job, if I remember correctly, was Nebraska Omaha?
Yes.
Okay. Good staff. I looked at your staff and stuff like that. It's pretty nice group. what was it like handling that position? Obviously, you're jumping, from the JUCO level now you're in the Division I level. So just tell me about your experience there. You guys were fairly successful there too as well. And like I always tell people, winning is an art. It's not easy.
Ooh, it
It's
is
not
not
something to take
easy.
advantage of. Like, you have to learn how to win. Like that's a gift.
Yes.
And appreciate it and respect it. So, but you guys are
Yes.
winning. You guys are
Yeah.
we're solid.
Thankfully.
Yeah. So just tell me about your experience there and the biggest adjustment going from the JUCO level to the D1 level.
I think the biggest adjustment with that, it was just for me is just, obviously at JUCO you take on different roles. And I feel like once I got to the Division I level, like there were a lot of roles that thankfully I was able to kind of shed, thankfully. But the intensity definitely jumped a ton, because this wasn't just, oh, well, that's, it's Penn Valley. It's okay. It was like, no, this is a Division I job. Like we're in one of the toughest conferences in the country as far as mid-majors. Like there's expectations now, as opposed to in the junior college level, you want to win. You want your program to do well, because ultimately you're doing that for exposure for your kids. You need to win in advance because you need to make sure they've got game film. You're making regional tournaments and all that stuff, so your kids have a chance to be seen and go on to the next level. As opposed to D1, it's like, no, we've done all that. We're here to win games now, and so that for me, it was kind of like, okay, like we got to lock in, and that was such, I look back on it, such an incredibly unique experience, because during that time, Omaha was transitioning from D2 to D1. So we had way more D2 players than we had D1 players. And even with the D2 players we had, they were recruited to a losing D2. And so like that for me was such a, a huge learning experience. Like you said, winning is an art. There were days we come in, I was like, we're giving all the smoke and mirrors right now. Cause it was like, we're not the more talented team right now, but we're going to find a way to look like it, at least for the next 40 minutes. And so that for me, like I said, I remember looking back and be like, man, that was such a great experience. Cause I mean, we had to grind, we didn't have the fortune of having multiple all conference players or even just multiple Division I players, and the few D1 players we did have, they weren't highly touted D1 players. They were kids that were happy just to go D1. So it was like, okay, we've got to squeeze every single thing we can out of these kids. And so, like you said, to be able to go in and have that, be dealing with that dynamic and win the amount of games we did, like I said, once again, it was kind of one of the stops along my way where it just really helped me, attitude of gratitude, like really grew. Cause, I remember transiting to the next job and I was like, man, I'm grateful I'm coming in with this mentality, because if not, you're coming in, you end up, ending a lot of days more pissed off than happy, because you're just looking like, well, we're not good at this. We're not good at this. We can't figure this out, and that makes me think of one of my favorite Amanda Butler quotes is when she first got the Clemson job. And she's like, a lot of coaches come into a place and they, well, we can't shoot. We can't do this. We can't do that. She's like, instead of coming in and be like, okay, well, what are we good at? Like, let's figure out what we're good at. And so that for me, like I said, with that first job, kind of having that mixed roster, you have to learn very quickly of what do we do well and how can we make it really good over the next 40 minutes.
Like I always say to my kids, do your special move.
Yes. What's your go-to? Be really good at it.
Hit the fan, do your special move.
Right.
So, you went on to become the assistant coach and recruiting coordinator at UMass Lowell.
Yes.
Okay, so it's July. We're going into the gym. All right. We're in Chicago. We sitting down. We looking at players. What makes you open the book and write down a name? Because we all know there's something that we're looking for. So what is it? What is it?
I would say initially always size. Who doesn't want a big lineup? You always kind of look like, okay, like what size, what position is he? What kind of size is she giving me? And then definitely just motor, because that's definitely something I've had the fortune of realizing over years, that a kid may not be the most talented right now, but if she works, well, ultimately that's what we're getting paid to do at our level, is these kids to get better. You develop them and you make them, become players that can be good and help you win games. And so that becomes a whole lot easier when the kid wants to work. And I think a lot of times, when coaches say motors, I think we do have to be a little bit more definitive with it. Working means hustle plays, rebounding, toughness, like wanting to do the little things, like wanting to, constantly communicate for 40 minutes when I feel like my chest is on fire, like that's motor right there. Whereas no matter how hard it may be, I'm going to be tougher than the situation, and so that for me is definitely something, as I've been going through, my coaching career, is something that's more and more been like, okay, does she play hard? Is she, whether she's in there for 2 minutes or 20 minutes, is she going to maximize it? And if she does, well, I have the fortune as a coach to be able to look at that over a 4-year span. What is that going to look like? That type of motor over 4 years with detailed, skill development, improved nutrition, a great strength and conditioning program. What is that player going to be able to develop in over those 4 years? So that for me, like I said, if I'm sitting down, I'm drawing a size as a former post player, it's kind of hard not to be, but definitely if you're a kid that you get after it, I'm definitely going to take a moment to check you out for sure.
So, as an assistant coach, we've all been there. Like you said, you like length, you may like this, you may like that, but then maybe a coach is looking for something a little bit different, and you may see this killer forward with the motor, but we looking for a guard. Yeah. Looking for a guard. That's what we're looking for. So, we all go through those journeys and battles and things like that. How do you navigate the situation? How do you get it, for lack of better terms, anything you could tell me is an edge in regards to, like, do you just focus on just, we're here right now, we're doing what we need to do, and that's it? Like, is it?
Like for me, when, having the fortune of being a recruiting coordinator, one thing you learn, you better keep 2 or 3 kids in your back pocket, because the kid your coach told you in November, we don't want her, she's going to have this crazy game in April, and your coach going to be like, well, why did we stop recruiting her? I don't understand. Why aren't we getting her on the phone? So, I've been in that situation more times than I can count. So definitely, at the end of the day, as an assistant coach, you're a professional suggester. You bring things to the table, but at the end of the day, it's not your program. And that's something I think as an assistant coach, you can't take that personal. If you bring a kid and you love her and you think she's going to be the next this for your program, coach shuts it down. At the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I'm not, as an assistant coach, I'm not answering for those wins and losses. So if he or she feels like this isn't something that's going to move the program forward, I'm only going to give you so much fight, because at the end of the day, his or her face is on this program. He or she's got to answer to these decisions. Now, in that same boat, I think it is definitely something, one, you continue to keep kids and, in the back pocket and recruit them and develop those relationships, because rosters, especially with everything going on nowadays, are incredibly fluid. So you always want to make sure that you are allowing your team to be in a position to kind of, I think one of my favorite, Coach Jose Fernandez quotes, we don't rebuild, we reload. You want to make sure you're reloading constantly for your team. So, I'm keeping the right players that I need to, I'm keeping in contact with them. But I think it's all about, your relationship with your head coach. But I do think you have to continue to present kids that you're passionate about. I do think you have to continue to fight for those kids. There have definitely been kids that, I've gone back and forth with my head coach about. And, sometimes I won those battles down the line, and I was like, yes, okay, great. But there were a lot of battles that I lost, and I never took it personal. Even the victories, I didn't take it personal, as far as like, yes, like I got this kid and I was right. I was just so grateful, because I was like, yes, I'm about to help make our program better. I was just so grateful that I had gotten an opportunity to make our program better. So that's where I think as an assistant coach, like, you had take the emotions out of it. It's never personal, because at the end of the day, if something doesn't pan out, the AD isn't coming in my office being like, why is our signing class trash? Like, they're not coming in my office they're going to the head coach and being like, hey, you signed 4 kids that aren't good enough. So that's where, for me, where it's kind of like, you take a step back. Okay, I'm gonna present it the best way I can, but at the end of the day, I've got to do what's best for this person's program, because this is her, his or her baby. So I've got to make sure I'm in line with whatever they need me to be.
So your next job is at Brown, player development, and an assistant coach. You guys are successful there. You were second in scoring in the conference. a very solid program. So as we know, the recruiting is a little bit different on the Ivy League level. For some people that don't understand the logistics of it, would you be willing to explain it? And just how do you get the best player at that position that you can get while also meeting their rigorous academic standards that are, you're gonna battle, at a school like that, So you can't just walk in the room and there's, I got this killer, but they got a 2-3.
They got a 2-3.
They're gonna be like, rip. They got to go.
Right. No, absolutely. And it's so funny you say that because, like you said, I left from Omaha, went to UMass Lowell. And then after that, we went to Brown. And when I had the fortune of being a recruiting coordinator, Sarah Bain, who I'll forever be in debt to for this, I'm year one of being a Division I coach. And I'm asking this lady, hey, I want to be a recruiting coordinator. I ain't got no connections. I've got no black book of kids, but I knew my heart and I knew my passion. I was like, I like recruiting. Like, I love relationship building. I love helping kids see why they will be special here. Like, that for me was just so second nature. And like I said, to Sarah's credit, I remember, bringing it to her and her being, me being like, this lady's gonna think I'm nuts. And she was like, okay. She was like, you better be good. And I was like, okay, no pressure whatsoever. And, so it was so funny. Like, I finally feel like I got my footing at Lowell because it was kind of similar to Nebraska Omaha. They were transitioning from D2 to D1. So I knew that message. I understood, what to sell, how to sell it, why to sell it that way. And then we get into a whole nother beast, this Ivy League. And so I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Now we're starting this thing back over again. And so for me, like you said, we couldn't attack it the same way as far as like, okay, we just gonna recruit whoever and all this stuff. You had to kind of take a step back. And so, one of the things I definitely did was went through all of the rosters in the Ivy League and kind of took a note of just different regions and high schools where, I went maybe the last 4 or 5 years of their rosters and looked at what regions were they pulling kids from and what high schools, what AAU programs were they getting these kids from? Because at the end of the day, we all recruiting the same kids. It's very rare an Ivy League signs a kid and you're like, I ain't never heard of that kid. Like, we all know. And that's, like I said, one of the toughest parts are probably about being in the Ivy League, because you're like, Lord, I'm gonna see this kid for 4 years now. It's very rare she doesn't end up in your league, and so for me, I just went through and analyzed rosters first of like, okay, this kid, they're pulling from this region. They've had success with that. They've had success with that. And then after, once I kind of got in a hold on that, we had to take a step back and realize we can't sell academics. Everybody in the Ivy is a great degree. No one ever leaves an Ivy League school with an okay degree. I mean, it's literally, you're leaving institutions that are some of the best in the world. Yeah. And so we had to take a step back and we had to sell us, because that was the only thing that separated us. We weren't gonna say we had a better degree than Princeton. We're not gonna say that we're more prestigious than Harvard. We're not gonna say we have a better law program than Yale. Like, we're not gonna win those battles. But what we can say that is one of one is our staff, our style of play, the dynamic you're going to be a part of here, and then of course, Brown in itself has some really, really incredible things as far as being the, one of the happiest Ivies and, things of that nature that we could definitely spend to be able to draw kids in. But ultimately, that's what we sold. So once we kind of had a better understanding of our pool and where we need to go from there, we had to sell up. Because I was like, we're not gonna beat Mike at Penn out for a lot of kids, in year one. So it was kind of like, okay, Penn selling championships and Philly and all this fun stuff. Well, what can we sell? We had to sell a vision, and we had to sell an opportunity. We had to sell, the promise of something greater than yourself and being able to be on the ground floor of that. And so, like I said, that was kind of also one of those key moments of being there, of really understanding and selling the excitement of coming in and being the foundation of something great. Like, it is such an incredible thing to be a part of you are the reason this school became this. A lot of times you get to walk into those type of things, and don't get me wrong, that's amazing as well. but to be the builders and the, you know, the forefathers of something becoming great, you don't get that opportunity a lot of times. And we had to sell that, you know, like, hey, you get to get on the ground floor of something special, you know? And so, like you said, we were able to convince some really, really incredible players to come and want to be a part of that. And, you know, the 2 years I was there, we were able to do some really great things. We shocked a whole lot of folks that, you know, I definitely didn't think that, you know, they didn't think we were going to be what we ended up being in those 2 years. And so it was an incredible learning experience, because it was like you said, I was like, you don't get to just come in and recruit anymore. Like, we got to research. I got to get transcripts. I got to get ACT scores. I got to get financial statements. You know, it's a different beast. But if you can sift through that and you can handle that, you know, we were able to, over my 2 years, get some really, really incredible players there at Brown.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Gave me some good stuff there, Coach. I'm gonna definitely rewind that one right there a little bit. It was dope. So next up, Boston College at the Power 5 level. BC is a great program.
Yes.
Tell me about your time there, because you know you got all the amenities and beautiful gym, and you in Beantown now. So tell me, Coach, what's up?
It was awesome. You know, being able to work for Eric Johnson was such an incredible experience. I mean, you talk about just one of the nicest people you will ever meet. I mean, that's him, you know, just salt of the earth. And got the fortune of working with a veteran staff, which as a young assistant coach, I absolutely loved. I mean, I always joke with them. I was like, you guys have probably forgotten more stuff than I've even learned, you know, a lot of days. So there were, you know, I remember early on, there were so many staff meetings where I was just in there quiet, because I was just kind of like, okay, this is, you know, I'm just gonna kind of take this in right now before I open my mouth, you know, like, and that was such an incredible experience, you know, and being able to see women's basketball at that level, it was mind blowing, you know. And so it's one thing, obviously, being in women's basketball and being a fan of it, you know, watching the Notre Dames, the Syracuses, you know, the Dukes, the Louisvilles, you know, it's one thing to watch it as a spectator, whether in person or, you know, in online on TV, whatever. It's a whole nother thing when we got to break down Louisville's offense and they got Dana Evans. You know, that's a whole nother animal right there, you know, having to break down, you know, when they've got just, you know, I think, Notre Dame still had Enrique at that point, you know, and watching this film, and they had Brianna Turner at that point still. So it was just such a different level, because now I'm not just getting to watch it. It's like, we got to beat this now, or we got to compete with this now. And so that was really fun as a young assistant, because, you know, watching the film, it was awesome, of course, you know, being able to see basketball at that level, but it was so challenging, because I don't no longer get to admire this. I got to beat this. We got to compete with this. We're going out in 2 days and they've got Enrique and Brianna Turner and the Mabrys, you know, like, and we're not going to stand there and we ain't doing this. Like, we're trying to get baskets and stop this team. And so that was such a great experience as a young assistant coach, of being able to watch that film and have to dissect that. And like, I think you mentioned before, you know, figure out what made them great. What makes those teams just so dynamic, and what makes those teams ultimately become these dynasties and have these type of legacies. And so being able to see, like I said, up close and personal, definitely a couple scores, you know, I would happily have blacked out, you know, but nonetheless, you know, to be able to have the chance to strategize against programs of that level, it was amazing. And then to do it at one of the most prestigious universities in the world, one of the most beautiful campuses you could ever be a part of. You know, that was my first time experiencing big time football, you know, and it was, like I said, it was something that, once again, I always kind of look back on as that stop and be like, man, you know, if I had a chance to do it all over again, I absolutely would, because it allowed me so much growth in so many different areas that, you know, I've been able to carry with me.
So you move on to USF, you with Coach Fernandez, you know, honestly, what made, because I'm sure you had options, but what made USF the right fit for you?
For me, you know, I'm so grateful. That's probably an opportunity that I still, to this day, you know, every time I talk to Coach Fernandez, because I call him a lot, you know, probably I always forget. I'm like, you are a top 25 coach. You probably got stuff to do right now. You know, what made it, you know, a great fit for me, for sure was, I had been a part of rebuilds, that I had been a part of transitions as far as going D2 to D1, coming into a program that's in the basement of their conference and trying to figure it out, or a team that's struggling and we're trying to climb in our conference just in general. But I had never been a part of a program that had figured it out, and it was figuring it out over a long time. And so that for me was something, I remember laughing with Coach, Fernandez in my interview where, he asked me the same question, like, why USF? You're in the ACC, like, why? And I was super honest with him. I was like, I haven't been somewhere where they've learned how to maintain it. I was like, and I want to be a head coach one day, and anybody can be good for a year. Coach Fernandez has been good for like 2.5 decades. That's incredible. And so I was like, I want to learn how, like, what does that look like? How do you maintain that on a daily basis? And so I remember after the fact, him laughing, he was like, that's by far one of the most honest answers I had ever gotten. He was like, I had gotten the top 25 and all this. He was like, I could tell you were sincerely like, I want to see how you've got this dynasty and how is it rolling? How are you keeping this thing not even just afloat, but you are just sailing, every year finding new horizons for your program. Like, I want to figure out how you do that, because that's what I want one day. I don't want to just be a head coach. I want to be a great head coach of a great program. And that's hard. So how do I do it? And so being able to have those 3 years and being able to be in the inner workings of that, and, being able to see, Coach Fernandez work, see his staff work, see his management style with players and coaches, see his ability to build relationships within the community. I mean, you talk about someone who is beloved in the city of Tampa and ultimately, the state of Florida. That is Jose Fernandez, and rightfully so. And so being able to have 3 years of being an absolute sponge and being able to have to, go to someone that, Coach Fernandez is an incredible X and O's coach in his own right. But, so many areas that I could pick his brain about, and him help make me better with it, and him happily make me better in those areas. That's definitely something I learned along my course as well, that, it can be odd when you tell, a coach, like, I want to be a head coach someday, and I need you to help me become basically what the seat you're in right now. It can be a tough dynamic sometimes for coaches, and he handled it incredibly well with me. Even moments where I'm sure he's like, lady, like, I'm preparing for UConn. Like, I'm not trying to answer these questions right now. He took the time to mentor me and help me be better with that, so being able to have the 3 years of being a part of that program, and then just some of the most incredible wins, and just, you talk about, by far one of the best environments in women's basketball, to be able to sit and be a part of that and add, just a little bit to the pot. I'm not even going to sit here and act like I was pouring in ladles, just a little bit to that pot. Like, I'm so grateful for that experience, because like I said, it helped me grow tremendously.
Awesome. So every team, every year is different. It's different.
Yes.
You're there for 3 years. You've been a part of some big games. You've been a part of some interesting activities and practices and whatever the case may be at USF.
Yes.
Tell me one moment that you were like, oh, these kids is bugging. Or
these kids are what?
Bugging. Like, or one funny moment that, with coach, or just a practice thing that really stood out to you. It could be good, it could be for the bad, but hey, this is a bad moment for us, but we grew from that, Yeah. So just tell me one of those things. If you could think of anything off the top of the head that really pulls you.
I remember, coming in, it was my literally first summer there. And so our point guard, Laya Flores, went home for senior point guard, went home for a little bit. And by far one of my all-time, I only had the fortune of coaching her for a year, but by far one of my most favorite kids to have the opportunity to be to coach. And she's coming back for summer workouts. I went home for, an extended period of time. She's originally from Spain. And she's going through a Coach Fernandez workout, and baby girl's hurt. And, like you can tell, that time at home, had caught her a little bit. And so I remember we, coach stops the workout for a bit. And so obviously, Coach Fernandez is Cuban, so he speaks Spanish. And, Laya's from Spain, she speaks Spanish. And so he basically, from what I kind of translated, asked her was like, did you just go home and eat eat a bunch of like jamon and queso? And so it's for me, I remember it was like, it was such an intense moment because I'm like, oh my God, to see your point guard, like, is the coach finna snap? Like, how's this gonna go? And he dropped that joke. And everybody just kind of laughed, and she was like, Coach, I did, and the workout completely shifted after that. And so that for me is always a moment that sticks out because he definitely, senior point guard, he could have came in and laid wood. Like, what the hell? What are you doing? And he just jokes, were like, you just went home and ate a bunch of jamon. Like, what's going on here? And you could tell that completely just changed the levity of the moment, And so that's something, like I said, I always kind of carry with me that, sometimes in those moments, especially if your kid, you don't need to come in with that punch because they may already be beating themselves up enough. Yeah. Sometimes you can come in and be the one to stop the punches and be like, hey, we're good. Let's keep it moving. We got this, and like I said, that's a moment that always kind of stuck with me because like I said, after that, the workout completely shifted. You could tell she had got her mind right. She wasn't worried about, is he analyzing her? What do I look like right now? She just got back to being Laya. And like I said, that's always a moment that kind of sticks with me because I thought Coach Fernandez handled that incredibly well.
Mm-hmm. I always say there's a time for the iron fist and there's a time for the velvet glove. You got
the velvet, yes, exactly,
exactly. Which, so then you moved on to become the head coach, FIU. What made this an ideal place for you? Because I'm assuming that you're doing your due diligence and you're looking at different schools and things that open up, and you're probably trying to figure out, one, do I qualify for the job? And if I do qualify for the job, is this an opportunity for me, as a head coach, a young head coach? I want to make this, your first time stepping out, it got to work because you may not get another chance. So this gotta work. It can't be
right.
It may or may not just for the resume because you never know. There's people that are head coaches for 4 years and then ACs for 30, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if your aspiration is bigger, it's that first job you want to make it right. So, why FIU?
Well, having the fortune of being at USF and being in the state of Florida, for 3 years, FIU was always kind of a job that I always kind of wonder, like, why aren't things rolling there? You have so much to offer, great education, great city, competitive conference, really cool gym. It was always kind of a job I kind of kept in the back of my mind of like, not even so much a job that I ultimately wanted to pursue, but just somewhere I was kind of like, man, like, feel like things could be really good there, And so for me, you're absolutely right. Having the fortune of being a part of a successful top 25 program, you get questions. I remember after my first year, I was like, so what's the next thing? I'm like, I just got here, like, I don't know. And so for me, having the fortune of being somewhere that we were winning, things were really incredible. I was very well taken care of, that is a blessing to be in somewhere that I wasn't running from. I would by no means was trying to pack my stuff and get up out of here. I had made a really incredible life there, part of an incredible program with great individuals. And so that did afford me the opportunity to be, like you said, picky of like, I don't know if I want to do this. Is this, I could kind of go through different jobs with a fine tooth comb of like, that looks good on the outside, but I don't know if that's good for me, And so one of the many things that really stood out from, with me with FIU outside of just, it was kind of always a job that I was like, man, I feel like things could be really good there. That, after doing my research, for many years, I want to say maybe over a 2-decade span, if I'm not mistaken, there was a head coach here, Cindy Russo, who our locker room is actually named after, where FIU women's basketball was like a dynasty. Turned out multiple pros, WNBA players, international and domestic. And so that's what, really, really drew me is, you got a head coach here that, Cindy Russo won 707 games. Like, I walk in the gym every day and see that banner, and I look up and I'm like, all right, we got 8 wins this year. Okay. I get to have the fortune of seeing that every day, but I loved it because I knew I had the fortune of coming into somewhere where women's basketball had done great things. I wasn't going to be coming into somewhere where this was outlandish, and when you're coming into a rebuild, it can be a dogfight getting resources for your program, wanting this for your program, wanting to ultimately elevate your program. And if they've never been good, they're going to be looking at you like, why would we give you this? Yeah. Like, why would we give you this? You guys have never been good. Like, you're crazy. And so I like that, in the past, they've been incredible, had done some incredible things. So I'm like, well, you're not going to tell me Cindy Russo had any more resources than I got right now. So if this is somewhere that had managed to be a dynasty, yeah, they had kind of fallen from glory in the last couple of years, but it was possible. That seed had been planted before. And so that for me, like I said, really, really drew me in. And then, like I said, after doing my research, as far as, it is an incredible degree. The city of Miami, the amount of alumni that you can literally throw a rock and hit, 100 alumni, easily, in the surrounding area, with it being an international university, we could literally be able to recruit worldwide, because we were going to be able to bring student athletes here that you're going to have somebody who is having the exact same experience you are, and there's value in that. When I'm asking a kid to come from everything she knows and loves, to good old FIU, and I need to know I'm going to have somebody there that's walked this path before, and so, with it checking all those boxes, the more, and I love that, like I said, the more and more research I did, the more and more I fell in love, because I was like, man, like, I knew they had done great things in the past, but I'm like, man, there is still a lot of infrastructure currently in place for some really great things to start back up. And so, once I had the fortune then to, speak with administration, across the board from an academic standpoint, athletic standpoint, and just to hear the desire for women's basketball to get back to that level. Like, that was like the icing on the cake for me, that I wasn't walking in somewhere where we're like, hey, women's basketball's been bad. Like, we just need, so we need a new coach. Like, it is what it is. Like, coming into somewhere where they were like, we want to get back to that. We want that. We want this for the program. It was like, okay, great. Now, when we're in those rooms and, I'm needing things for my program, or we're in those rooms and I have to have tough conversations, I'm having those conversations with people that support my program. And at the end of the day, like you said, as a first-year head coach, first time stepping out, you need a whole lot of support. And I don't care where you are. You have to be supported, because it is a learning experience, especially if you're coming into a rebuild. You're figuring a whole lot of things out sometimes on the fly. And, I had the bright idea of becoming a first-year head coach in a pandemic, so I needed the support of, my administration and people who had been a part of this, a part of this university and had seen, the in and outs of our program. I needed their support. And that is something, even to this day, I have gotten in, boatloads. And so that for me, like I said, once I had gone through, and FIU was really checking all the boxes, it's been great now going on to year 2. Everything stands true. So that for me, in a big nutshell is what, made FIU a great job. But, I think to kind of touch on something you said before, it is true, getting this opportunity, it isn't something that take lightly, one, being able to get a job in general, but definitely being able to get a job like this as a woman of color, this job has the opportunity to open doors for other, women that look like me. And I know a lot of times, people say, don't put that pressure on you. And it's like, no, I want that pressure, because I want that glory of what it can happen for other people. You can't have one without the other. You can't say, I want to do great things, but I want no pressure. It don't work that way, so I embrace and I take on that pressure, because, knock on wood, we continue to do well. And, we continue to get things rolling here. Maybe another AD at another school is like, you know what? This girl's resume is very similar to this coach at FIU who got things rolling there, and they're crushing it, and they're making the tournament, and they're doing all these great things. Well, you know what? Maybe we need to consider her. Yeah. And so that for me, like I said, is also one of the reasons I was kind of nitpicky, because I was like, this isn't an experiment. This isn't something, well, let's just see if we want to be a head coach. This is something that has the opportunity to obviously let me live out a dream, but also open the doors for someone else to live out a dream as well.
Couple more questions, Coach. Couple more. I'm having fun.
No worries. As you can see, I'm never short on words. So that's why when you were like, I'm not going to keep you, I was like, honey, I'm probably going to end up keeping you. So
we good, dude. We good. We're going to let her roll then. So you're molding your first staff, right? You know, I listened to an interview one time by somebody that used to talk about how they would go to the gym and, you know, they're watching, of course, the games, but they're watching the people too. So overshare. My first time, and I mean, obviously knew I coached Exodus and doing like stuff like that. So I see the coaches. I'm watching everybody. So I made it very clear. While I didn't know a nice bit of people, in my first event, it was a high and by type of thing. Like, I like y'all. We can get this papaya and this mango a little bit later on, because right now I got to be in this book. Like, yes. I think that's very, very important that you have to be focused, because it's a rare opportunity you get to see kids live. So
very true.
I say that to say this. It wasn't like I wasn't trying to be personable, because I think I'm a personable guy. But, you know, we're there to put in work. We're here to put in work. So you're molding your staff. You know, I'm sure you probably had your list, or, you know, you probably was like, let me call some people they may know a person, things like that. Because again, it's your first time out, you want to make it work. Right. It's got to work. And you need good people behind you, because you simply can't do everything. It's
absolutely.
So what was your process, and why did you pick who you picked?
So I, you know, over these last 2 years, I've been so lucky with my staff. You know, my first year out, I knew that I needed someone with head coaching experience. You know, I was not going to sit here and act like, no, I got this figured out. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I got my instincts and I got my gut, but at the end of the day, I've never been in that seat, you know? And so I knew that, you know, I wanted to bring in someone that, you know, had been in that seat, and didn't matter level to me. It's just someone who had been in those seats, had those conversations, made those calls, taken those timeouts, because, you know, I needed someone that was going to be able to bounce things off of. And in those moments, and that's something for me that, you know, I welcome, for lack of better words, I welcome criticism. Like, tell me what I messed up. Like, I want to know, like, because I don't want to get down this path and you've been patting me on my back and telling me I'm doing, where can I be better? So let's address this right now. And so I needed someone, though, when I was having those conversations, that had been in my seat, so that could answer it from this perspective, you know, because you only know what you know. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I was fortunate enough to, you know, my first year to be able to have, you know, my assistant coach, Robin Sherwell, who's actually the head coach now at Evansville, to be able to have those conversations with, of like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, good, bad, and indifferent, but this is how I'm seeing it, you know. And it was great to have her, you know, at times be like, okay, I can see how you could see it that way, but also sometimes to come back and be like, it's not that deep. It's not that serious. Like, you got to shift gears here, gears, you know. And I was so grateful for that, because, you know, like I said, this is still a huge learning experience for me. So it was really awesome having someone that, you know, was going to be able to be in that position and help, you know, mentor me, you know, to an extent. And so I was really grateful for that. And then for my next position, I knew I needed someone that was very good at X's and O's. It's definitely something for me that I grew a ton during my time at South Florida, but I knew I was going to need someone that was going to be able to help me continue to grow and challenge me and be like, well, why are we running that? Okay, are you running that because you're comfortable, or are we running this because this is the best play right now? You know. And so I had the fortune of my assistant coach, Timothy Silver. I had the fortune of working with him at the University of South Florida. You know, and I always tell young coaches, no matter the position, no matter what, do your job, work hard, because you don't know who's watching. And so I had the fortune of working with Coach Silver for 2 years at South Florida. He was our video coordinator. And there were so many times, you know, me and Tim sit in the office and I'm like, okay, what about this? Let's break it down this way. Let's look at, you know, and really just, you know, going through things together and talking basketball, and me being able to see his passion for that, you know. And he don't know, you know, he don't know if I want to be a head coach or not. He doesn't know, you know, if this is my last stop, you know, on my career tour. He, you know, he has no idea. And he's a worker, you know. And that's something I always admired about him, is obviously, like I said, he's a great X's and O's mind, but he does a great job of being able to, he had built relationships with literally departments all throughout, not only just athletics, but our university, you know. And that was something for me I really, really admired, that he just wasn't, okay, I'm just a video coordinator, that don't involve me, you know, like I do video, I chop it up, I upload it, and my job's done, you know. he had done an incredible job of building relationships with everyone that had a chance to touch our program. And I loved it too, because he had worked his way up from a practice player to a student manager to a video court, like he had talk about climbed the ladder and paid his dues. And throughout that entire process, stayed humble, worked hard, incredible personality, was grateful for every opportunity he got. And so, like I said, I needed someone that was going to come in with that type of mentality and personality and skill set, because we're coming into a rebuild. So our program has not been casted in the best light in athletics across the university. So I need somebody that's going to be able to come in, and we're going to have to build a lot of bridges back, because unfortunately a lot of them had been singed and cemented, and, we were going to have to come in and be able to fix that, and Coach Silver was someone that, like I said, I had the fortune of seeing up close and personal do that, within athletics, within our university. He did a great job of building, very intimate but professional relationships with our players, and so I knew I wanted somebody that I could trust, and I trusted him. And so, he was someone that I had the fortune of being able to, he was at that time, I was, offered the job here, he was at Stetson University, and I remember reaching out and was like, hey, this is a possibility. Would you be interested? And he was like, absolutely. No question. Because you can have it made up in your mind, I'm going to offer them this job. And then you get on the phone, they're like, nah, I'm good. Like, I wish you the best, but nah, this isn't for me, and so I will forever be grateful for that, because, I needed him to relocate from his family. He's got a beautiful family. I was like, well, I'm going to snatch you from them for a little bit, and for him to trust me and my vision and have belief in me is something I will never forget, because he was in a much more stable situation, with a coach that had been there for years, that had things rolling for years, that had success, and was taking a chance on me ultimately, and it's something I will forever be grateful for him for doing. And then my last assistant spot was probably one of my worst hires. I'm just kidding. It's my husband.
I was like, we should have mentioned that one.
No, I'm just kidding. One of my last hire was my husband, like I mentioned before. It was something, he has an incredible, basketball resume. I mean, he's coached in the NBA. He's, for the Celtics, the Maine Red Claws, for the New Orleans Pelicans. He's coached at IMG. He coached at one of the best prep schools at Worcester Academy up in the New England area. Like, just a very diverse, he's coached at great JUCOs, just a really, really incredible basketball resume in mind. And it was something him and I had talked about for years, as far as like, we want to work together, just from ultimately a quality of life. That was something, this job is incredibly demanding. It can divide you into 4 million directions. So if I can shave off one of those directions, because, me and my husband actually work together, so our schedules are the same, and, him and I can just be a little bit more streamlined from a personal standpoint, we wanted that. And, to kind of go over to the business side of it, like I said, he is very good at what he does. He's an incredible skill development coach. He's incredible with video breakdown and being able to do the analytics part of it, which is not my forte, and something that I was incredibly strong at. And I was fortunate enough to be able to have someone that was going to be able to come in and poke holes in that right. And once again, someone that I could trust. So, once I was able to, hire those three, I was able to hire Katie Healy as my director of operations, who, I always joke, that's still one of my best hires. I don't care what nobody say. Like, Katie absolutely crushed it in, the director of basketball operations position for us, the year she was with us. And I cannot tell coaches enough, like, if you get a great Dobo, hold on to them, do everything you can to make them happy, make them comfortable, make them secure, because I cannot tell you the amount of stress Katie took off of me as a first-year head coach, the things I just didn't even have to think about, things I even know I should be stressed about, because she had handled it for me, and so I was so, so grateful to have her in that position, but also someone in her own right was a great basketball player and is also a very great basketball mind. So it's really, I'm so excited she has a chance now to get on the floor, because it was awesome, being able to sit in on meetings. And obviously Katie, was a lot closer to playing than I, than I am. So being able to tap into her knowledge base of like, yeah, Katie, I need you to do the logistics and keep our program running, but what do you see? Mm-hmm. And having someone who, like I said, who had just been in that position, just coming out that fire, being a 4-year or 4 or 5 year basketball player, and having that perspective, because, I don't know what it's like to be 19 anymore. I don't, I don't know what that's like at moments. I can relate on a personal level. I can relate from, a loving on your players level, but I do not any longer have the mind of a 19-year-old. And I don't know what it's like to be living with 19-year-olds and coexisting with them, in certain aspects. And so it was great having Katie that in moments where, I was, for lack of better words, out of touch, having her to be able to step in and be like, I don't know how that's going to be received, coach, and being able to be like, okay, Katie, what's your, what are your thoughts then? And, being able to have that insight. So that for me, like I said, just as a collective, I mean, I couldn't have asked for, a set of coaches and a director of operations in Katie Healy. So that was kind of the thought process in going through, hiring the positions the way I did.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you can only be one, only one you could be. You're great at X's and O's, but you're bland. Oof. You're not a rah-rah guy. You don't motivate the troops, but down by one, sideline out of bounds, you the chef. You Chef Boyardee. Somebody about to get loose. That's you. Or you're not the best X's and O's guy. I mean, you're not, but you can have somebody run through a wall for you. You Denzel Washington and Remember the Time. You that guy. You only be one. Which one and why?
Denzel, no question about it. At the end of the day, players win you games. Mm-hmm. It don't matter what you draw up. The kids got to execute it. Mm-hmm. And so for me, X's and O's, that's something you can grow and continue to get better at. Boring, lack of connection, not being able to motivate your kids. That's a much bigger mountain in my mind. So I definitely would want to be, like I said, if I'm only going to be one, I have the ability to help my kids run through a wall for me, because at the end of the day, players make plays. Mm-hmm. No one has ever taken a playbook and thrown it on the floor and won a game. Basketball players win you games. And if they're happy to be there, they're grateful for the opportunity, and they're loving that experience, it don't matter how many walls you put in front of that kid, she's going to find a way, because she doesn't want to let you down. She don't want to let her teammates down. She don't want to let the program down. Mm-hmm. So that for me, like I said, you can grow in X's and O's and you continue to get better, but at the end of the day, your kids make plays, kids win games. Mm-hmm. So that's where for me, it's like, no, you got to make sure that you're keeping your kids motivated. And at the end of the day, you're bringing in kids that can win you games. So I'm sure it's probably blasphemy, but I'm going with the latter right now.
I feel you, coach. I feel you. I'm a young coach, I'm about to step on the floor the first time, never coached a stitch of D1 basketball before ever. You're walking down a tunnel, you see me. I'm nervous. Mm-hmm. One piece of advice, what do you give me?
Kind of what we kind of started our conversation with, what are you good at in these moments? Mm-hmm. You're about to end either, whether it's coaching practice or coaching, a game, what are you good at in that moment? Mm-hmm. Be good at it. So don't try to be anybody but you. If you're not a stats person, don't want to come out there and start quoting stats to your head coach. That's not you. That's okay. Like that's not you. So whatever in those moments you found a way to be really good at, that's allowed you to even get to this moment, be good at that. And then I would say next, probably, one, that's 1A, 1B, find a way to help these kids be warriors, because they're going to go through so many emotions in a practice, in a game, that, it's going to be a lot. But find a way to help them know that they're going to get through this and they're going to be great at this. Mm-hmm. So that would be, two pieces of advice, because, one, you don't know what you don't know. So don't go out there and fake it, because coaches and players will smoke you out very quickly of like, what is this person talking about? Be quiet. What are you saying? So if you found, whatever has allowed you in those moments to be great at that, really, really thrive in that moment. And at the end of the day, don't forget why we do this. It's the kids. So find a way to make sure that these kids are out there, they're happy and they're confident and they're thriving. Because if you do that in the midst of you growing, you'll find a way. You'll be okay.
What can we expect from this team? Not wins and losses, but what are we going to see when we go to FIU game? What are we going to see from you guys?
I would say kind of, something we start off once again with, passion and work. That is something that, we've been talking since last year. When we roll out on the court, we're not always going to be the most talented team out there. And that's okay. I'm going against, we're going against a lot of coaches that have had the fortune of years and years of recruiting classes and repetition and getting that system in place. And, you can't fake that, but you can outwork anybody. You can always do that. Work is a choice, experience, you can't fake that. If you're a freshman, you're a freshman, you can't fake that, but work, that's a choice right there, and so that's something we talk about with them is when we step on the floor for 40 minutes, win or lose, when that other team walks off, they need to be like, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that again. That, like I said, win or loss as a head coach, obviously I want more wins because I'm a competitor, but that's what the narrative needs to be is, oof, I'm glad we got through that, y'all, and living and dying in every play. Because I think a lot of coaches, we do talk about, don't, get too high or get too low, which is true. You can't live at the mountaintop and you can't make real estate in the valley either, but be in every minute, because what we have the fortune to do, and so we say as a staff, obviously with our players, like what we have the fortune to do is extraordinary. We are a part of such an incredible elite group that get to do this. And we need to come out every single day with that type of mentality and that type of passion, because there are people right now, I could walk into pretty much any gym in Miami, in Florida, in Jersey. And if I told a kid, hey, I'm going to give you a full scholarship. You're going to live in Miami, Florida. You're going to be in one of the best mid-major conferences, in America. What you think? Oh, and you're going to get a great degree and we're going to cover everything. That kid's not even going to ask what my name is. She's going to be like, say less. Like, okay, like, so when you need me to report, like, how's this work? Like, what we have the fortune of doing is a blessing. And so, one of the many ways that, you can honor that blessing, you can honor, being in this calling is being grateful and passionate. So every day you step out there, give it your all, and not just, like I said, from a work standpoint, from an emotional standpoint. Like I go home after practice and I'm wore out. Like, I'm like, okay, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Because if I'm going home at night and I feel like I gave just enough to get through, that's not fair to my players because they didn't sign up for that. They signed up for a coaching staff and a head coach for sure that was going to give them every little drip drop that she has. So that isn't when it's convenient or when I feel good or when it's best, because I don't allow my players to do that, so I got to bring that same energy. So that's something for me, I wish, I look forward to our players hearing this. I'm like, yeah, she ain't lying about that. Work and passion. Like work and passion is something that every single time you have the fortune of stepping on the court, that needs to be evident that, oh no, this team gets after it and they love what they get the opportunity to do.
Mm-hmm. All right, last one. Anything I missed you want to share? Now you can answer this plenty of different ways. You can give me the
that's why I was like, oh man, that's a lot of avenues to take there.
I'm a basketball talk, or you can tell me something new and different about you that's not related to basketball at all. So anything I missed you want to share?
Honestly, continue to do what you're doing. Like I mentioned before, you doing this podcast and allowing us as, coaches around, the country, coaches around the world, to be able to pick up so many incredible nuggets from one another that, we probably wouldn't have an opportunity to till, hopefully maybe the Final Four and maybe during July recruiting, but to have, access to this type of, information and different perspectives and things of that nature. I'm really appreciative of that, so that's one thing I definitely want to share with you is continue with this, anything that we can do to advance our game and to, really, really expand the brand of women's basketball, because it is special and it is incredible. And it is something that definitely deserves to be doted on, anything that's going to allow the advancement of that in a positive light, we need more of. So thank you for doing this.
Awesome. All right, Coach. Thanks again. You take it easy.
You too. Thank you.